Hello? I hope there's some energy here today. I want to start by welcoming our different campuses, Kenosha, Racine. Those of you who watch us online, listen to us online via podcast, we welcome all of you, and the very beautiful, amazing, honorable people in the room with me. We welcome all of you. All right, they got it. So for most of us, this time of year, right at the beginning of January, it is a time for us to look forward. It's a time for us to have a little bit of vision. It's a time for us to reach deep within and say, all right, what do I want to accomplish this year? Who do I want to be? And some people are really, really good at this, and they sit there and they write a bunch of notes, and they're saying, man, these are my goals this year. These are my resolutions. There's other people that are like, I might somewhere inside of me think about what I might want to do this year, but I ain't writing anything down. And regardless of what you do and how you approach a year, I think we're all on the same page that the idea of doing more can be very overwhelming. The idea of accomplishing more can be overwhelming. Yes, for some people it's motivating, but it's overwhelming because life is just filled with so much that we're supposed to be doing. I just wrote down a few things here. Every day we're supposed to be eating certain foods, 3 vegetables, 2 fruits, some protein, and a partridge and a pear tree, right? I need to get enough fiber in my body every day, calcium, iron, zinc, vitamins A, B, C, D, E, and K. I need to be doing cardio and strength training. I need to meditate so that my body and my mind align. I need to be eliminating stress, nurturing creativity, and improving my posture. I need to be financially responsible, so I need to be giving, saving, and living on the rest. I need to be changing my oil every 3,000 miles. I need to change the batteries of my smoke detectors twice a year. I need to replace my toothbrush every 3 to 4 months. I need to flip my mattress every 6 months. I need to buy pillows every 1 or 2 years. And that's just a start. So you think about all the things that we're supposed to be doing and eating and drinking and changing and replacing. Come on, guys, it's exhausting. And that doesn't even include all the things that we're supposed to be doing as followers of Jesus and as a church, right? We're supposed to be loving and serving and caring and showing compassion to people here, near, and far. We're supposed to be people of grace, receiving God's grace and giving it away to others. We're supposed to be gathering together in small groups to pray for and encourage each other and study the scriptures. We're supposed to gather together in large groups so that we can receive communion and sing and worship God collectively. We're supposed to be maturing and growing on our own and owning our faith, having the ability to share our faith with other people. We're supposed to be using our gifts to serve people. We're supposed to be growing in generosity and supporting all types of mission work. It is absolutely overwhelming. And so what I want to do in 2022 is I just want to focus us. Right? What I want to do, we've never done this in our history as a church. What I want to do is I want to choose one word that becomes a lens through which we approach the year. One word to set a foundation for everything we do. And in 2022, that word is courage. Following Jesus requires courage. Right? Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward in spite of fear. And when you think about it, following Jesus requires all sorts of courage. It takes courage to obey what we believe Jesus wants us to do, even when we have no clue of what the outcome is going to be. It takes courage to stand strong in the midst of opposition. So my prayer for you, my prayer for collectively our church in 2022 is that we would be people of courage. We would grow in courage. Now, it's going to look different for all of us, right? For some, that's going to be choosing to go forward on the forgiveness journey when someone has hurt you deeply. And for you, there's a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty involved, but you're just going to say, okay, I'm taking next steps forward. For others of you, it's going to be growing in generosity. It's saying, man, this has always been something that's been difficult for me, but this year, I'm going to take steps forward. For others, it's going to be surrendering your life to Jesus for the very first time. For some, it's going to be being water baptized. It's saying, man, I've always put this off, but I'm taking steps forward and walking into my fears and making it clear that I'm a follower of Jesus. And regardless of what it is for you, my prayer is that we grow in courage, we grow in boldness, and that all of us would live out the words written by the Apostle Paul more than 2,000 years ago to followers of Jesus when he wrote, be on guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, and do everything with love. That's my prayer. That's my hope for you in 2022 and throughout the coming months. Throughout the next 300 some days, we're going to, from time to time, come back to this idea, remind ourselves of it, and then do our best to live it out. Now, last week, we kicked off a teaching series called At Your Best, and we talked about that if we're going to be at our best in any area of life, it's going to require discipline and habits. Right? And that's not new information. And it makes sense, right? Because you look at anybody who we consider to be successful, well, they're really, for the most part, going to be people of discipline, people of habits. And typically, the habits that they've implemented in their life have to do with work ethic or have to do with time management or setting priorities or leveraging energy. And all those things are important. But it's totally possible that we are people of discipline and we got habits related to those things and we're achieving and accomplishing, accumulating, and yet we're still unhappy and unhealthy. And so what we're doing in this series is we're focusing on habits, but a different type of habit, and that is communication habits. And the reason why is because when we learn to communicate with each other in healthy ways, everyone benefits. We are at our best when our relationships are healthy. Now, I doubt you think about this much, but we're always communicating, right? Even when you're not talking, you're communicating. Our silence communicates. Our eyes communicate. Our body posture communicates. Our facial expressions communicate. We can't not communicate. That being said, our words tend to be the primary way that we connect and interact with one another. And so 3,000 years ago, King Solomon of Israel, who was known all around the known world for his wisdom, people would seek him out. He wrote many different things about the power of our words. He just wanted people to understand, hey, our words have power. Here are some of the things he wrote. He said, our words have the power to bring life or death. Our words have the power and the ability to cut or to heal. They have the ability to turn away wrath or to stir up anger. So if we're going to be at our best in 2022, we have to learn to communicate. Now, that is easier said than done, right? Because communication is complex. Communication has all types of nuances, and when you look at different words through different generations, you realize we stop using certain phrases or certain words that we once used now have different meanings. So let me just give you a couple of examples, right, from the past few hundred years. 1700s, there was the word swill belly. Swill belly was a reference to anybody who was a heavy drinker. Mullygrubs was a reference to someone who was sad, someone who was unhappy. So if you are a swill belly, you'll eventually be a mullygrubs, right? That's just kind of how that works, right? In the 1800s, the word chuckaboo was a reference to one of your pals, right? One of your buddies. So if I'm hanging out with one of my buddies, I would say, here's my chuckaboo, right? And mafficking, that was a reference to just causing chaos, being loud, being rowdy. So if I'm hanging out with my chuckaboos and we are mafficking, right, somebody's going to step in and say, this has got to stop. All right, 1900s, giggle juice. Any idea what giggle juice refers to? Booze, alcohol, absolutely. And that's what giggle juice is. Abercrombie is a reference to a know-it-all. People who drink too much giggle juice end up being an Abercrombie, right? It's just the way it works. They evolve, words do, and phrases do over time. Now we live in 2022, so it's not just about the different words we use in different phrases. Now we use acronyms, because we do this through texting, right? So let's do a pop quiz. Let's see how well you can do in the texting world. GTG, any ideas? Got to go. All right, here we go. IMO, in my opinion. PAW. Parents are watching. So if you see that on your kid's phone, man, you just know they were doing something they should not have done, right? SMH, shaking my head. TTYL, talk to you later. WTF. Wow, that's fantastic. Absolutely. Your grandkids text you, got all A's, you just go, WTF. That is amazing, right? But here's the deal. Words evolve and they change over time. What means something to one generation means something completely different to another generation. And that's understandable. We get that every couple decades. We understand how things happen. But what's not easy to understand or comprehend or connect the dots on is that our words and the phrases we use can actually be interpreted differently based on the person that we're talking to. And so what we're doing in this teaching series is we're focusing on how to dramatically improve our communication skills by considering the different temperaments that people have and bringing that into play. And we're zeroing in on a single sentence written by the Apostle Paul in the first century. Here's what Paul wrote. He said, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. All right, and so the big goal is that when we're talking to others, it'd be for building them up according to their needs. We got to understand their needs, their temperament, that it may be a benefit to them as they listen. Now, today, we're going to focus on the first part of what Paul writes. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. Next week, we're going to get into, but only what is helpful, all right, for building others up. But today, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. You do not have to be a Bible scholar to know what unwholesome talk is, right? The very idea that something is unwholesome means it's not good for you. It's spoiled, it's rotten, right? Unwholesome talk really falls into two categories: unhelpful and unhealthful. All right, let's throw those onto the screen. Unhelpful talk is talk that is useless or not beneficial. All right, so that would be gossip, negativity, complaining, cursing, debating, getting in discussions on the same things over and over and over just to stir people up, just to fight, right? Unhealthful talk, and yes, unhealthful is a word. Unhealthful talk is talk that is bad, harmful, or toxic. Unhealthful talk is talk that belittles or discourages or defeats or puts down another person. In both categories of words, unhelpful and unhelpful are words that chip away at other people. They're words that make someone feel less whole. Now, the reason we're talking about this today, and the reason this is such a big deal, and the reason we're doing a series on the power of communication is that in the average relationship, for every one word of encouragement, for every one word that builds someone up, for every one compliment that someone receives, they receive 6 complaints or words of criticism. There's a 6-to-1 ratio, 6 criticisms to every one compliment. Now, think of this in terms of someone's health, right? So you have kids living in your house. Just imagine if when it came time to give them something to drink, you gave them 1 bottle of water for every 6 cans of soda that you gave them. Right? Now, they will say, hey, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But come on, imagine if for every 1 bottle of water, we gave them 6 cans of soda. Here's the deal. They would not notice anything, nor would you right away. You might see some hyperactivity. But other than that, it's not going to make that big of a difference. Over the course of a week, not going to make that big of a difference. Over the course of a month, yeah, it's not going to be the healthiest thing for them. Not that big of a difference. But over time, it's going to lead to incredible amount of problems if this is what they're having every single day. And we live in a world where there is 6 criticisms, 6 unhealthy things being handed to them for every one compliment. And this explains why there's so many toxic work environments. It explains why so many marriages are in crisis. It explains why kids are growing up with elevated levels of anxiety and depression and insecurity. And I got to tell you, when I first came across this 6-to-1 ratio, I just thought, this got to be an exaggeration. Come on, none of us are that bad. It's not like I'm going around and just saying, boom, 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 boom. You know, you're wrong. I don't like that. You're nasty. Look at how you look. That's not how we talk. But here's the deal. Most of the criticisms and complaints that come out of our mouth, they're not even intentional. We don't even realize we're doing it. We're saying the right things, but we're using the wrong words. We're communicating in the wrong way or the wrong time, or we're communicating it in a way that comes across very different than how we intend it to. Because our temperament and the temperament of the person we're talking to is often very different. The source of our unhelpful words and unhelpful words are often just our temperament. We said this last week, that our temperament influences how we speak and what we hear. It just does. Now, if you weren't here last week, it's okay, because I'm going to give you a quick overview of temperaments, and I'm going to do this every week of the series, just so we're all on the same page. Every single one of us, we're born with one of 4 basic wirings. These are called temperaments, and this is nothing new. People in psychology, people, smart scientists, really smart people have said for a couple thousand years now, because they were first really developed, and the idea thought of by Hippocrates in 2400 BC. So this is really old stuff, but a temperament is different than a personality. Right, so we all have a basic temperament, and that temperament influences our personality, but it's different because personalities change and evolve over time. Our temperament is fixed. We're born with it. And so each one of us have one of 4 different temperaments. Now, if you're part of our online crew and you are listening to our podcast, just know I'm going to do my best to keep you engaged, but we're going to look at a graphic, and so you might get a little bit lost, but this graphic shows the 4 different temperaments represented by 4 different colors. I have friends who hate this stuff. And the reason they hate this stuff is they say, well, you can't put people into a box. And I got to tell you, I agree. And so the purpose of what we're doing isn't to put people in a box. If we use this to label people, it's actually going to do a lot of harm. We got to give people flexibility, right? We're way more complex than just a bunch of colors and words and letters and animals and all the stuff that's out there. But if we use this as a tool, if we use this as a starting point, it's incredibly helpful in learning how to interact with each other. All right, so let's start with sanguines. Sanguines, the yellows, these are people who their primary language is people and fun. All right, they are eternal optimists. They love to party. Everybody loves to be around these people. Elvis Presley, Magic Johnson, Anna and Olaf from Frozen, right? These are the yellows in this world. Reds, cholerics, they speak the language of power and control. These are visionaries. They're decision makers. They like to get things done. Tony Robbins, Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan. Greens are phlegmatics. They speak the language of calm and harmony. They are diplomats. They just want to make sure everybody is seen and heard and valued. Walt Disney, Keanu Reeves are phlegmatics, all right? And then we got the melancholics. These are people who speak the language of perfection and order. They're able to identify challenges. They come up with creative and detailed solutions. Mother Teresa, Khloe Kardashian, and yes, our friend Danny Tanner, all right? So, when there is a problem, when there is something to accomplish, just I want you to imagine this and see how this works, right? Something to accomplish. We got a task in front of us. The blues say, we need to do it the right way. The greens say, we need to do it in a caring and loving way. The yellows say, I don't care how we do it as long as we do it together. And the reds say, let's stop talking and let's get it done now. That's how the different personalities work. And it's important to know that there's no temperament that's better than another temperament. We all have strengths and weaknesses, right? Yellows, they're super fun to be around, but they tend to talk way more than they listen. Cholerics, right? The reds, they're great at getting things done, but man, when they're on a mission, they can be bullies. Greens, they're great at getting along with everyone, but they procrastinate. They move a lot slower than most people like them to. Right? Blues, they're excellent at creating systems and structure and bringing order, but they tend to be very judgmental and critical of others if they're not careful. And so when you're looking at this quadrant, here's what you need to know. The top personalities, the yellows and the reds, they tend to be extroverts. The bottom personalities, greens and blues, tend to be introverts. That doesn't mean they don't like people. It actually means they just find their energy being away from people. They tend to think about things and then say them. The ones at the top, they think out loud. Literally, as they're saying something, they're processing. They haven't thought it through, right? The ones on the right, the reds and the blues, they tend to be task-oriented, meaning think about the task first. The ones on the left, the yellows and the greens, they tend to think about people first. And I know that this can be overwhelming if you haven't heard this stuff before, but what I'm trying to get across is that we all have different temperaments. And each of us are primarily one color. Okay, you can take tests on this and you can learn this stuff. And it's easy to dismiss in a setting like this, but I'm telling you, it's deeply spiritual. It's deeply spiritual. We're all primarily one color. We can be a blend if the color's attached to us. So I'm a red, but I got some yellow, right? My wife is green, but she also has some yellow. What you're not going to do is be a color diagonal, right? You're not going to be a red, all about power and control, but also about calm and harmony. It's just not the way it works, right? And so we just need to understand that, hey, we're all different temperaments. And without understanding or embracing the different temperaments that we have, in the ways we communicate with each other, we will unintentionally offend or hurt or discourage the other people in our life. And we'll just do it in everyday conversations without even meaning to. And so the Apostle Paul writes, he says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. Now, when Paul says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, he's saying, hey, you have a choice. You can let it come out or you can not let it come out. It's totally up to you. And the reason I bring this up is it's very easy to say, well, that's just my temperament. I'm a blue, so I'm going to call them out. They didn't have a plan. They just got up there and winged it. That bothers me, right? I'm a yellow. I just feel like I have to speak up and just say what comes to my mind, right? I'm a green, and I just want to make sure everybody's getting along and everybody's agreeing on each other, you know. But here's the deal. At the end of the day, the words we use are the words we choose. Dr. Seuss, be really proud right now, right? The words we use are the words we choose. When we're communicating, we need to remember that the words or phrases we use, that we choose to use, are going to be processed differently based on a person's temperament. It is the reason why we can be in a conversation in something that we feel is helpful, and we're trying to give something helpful, something that's going to benefit someone. It's the reason why something we think is helpful can end up being harmful to a person. Because we said it and we processed it and we communicated it through our temperament rather than through their temperament. And the thing about temperaments is we all have different needs when it comes to communication. Now, again, if you're listening to a podcast, you're going to have to hang with us. You can pull over and you can Google this stuff, right? But yellows, their need, these outgoing, fun to be around people, their need is approval, acceptance, attention, and affection. That's what they need. They are high maintenance, is what I like to say, right? And if you want to hurt a yellow, they're actually really low maintenance, but if you want to hurt a yellow, what you need to do is interrupt their stories, because they like to talk, and they can talk and talk and talk, and you just interrupt their story, be uninterested in the stories, express disapproval, right? If you have a yellow in your life and they throw a surprise party, if you have a yellow and they do something kind of spontaneous and they're trying to make your life fun, and in the middle of it, you're like, well, this would be a lot more fun if it would have been planned out and thought through a lot more. Right? That's a one way to destroy them, because that's not how yellows process information, right? Those with the red temperament, right? Our greatest need, loyalty, sense of control, appreciation, and credit for work. If you are not careful, or let's just say you want to intentionally hurt a red, let me tell you how to hurt us, right? When we do something for you, don't express appreciation. Pressure us to do something we're not comfortable with. The worst thing you can do to a red is break loyalty. They will remember that for the rest of their life. They're really good at remembering facts. Everybody else calls it holding grudges, but they'll say, it's just remembering facts, right? If you have a red in your life, you are blessed. All right, here we go. Greens. The greens in our world, they need, this isn't just like, I kind of would like it. They need harmony, feeling of worth, lack of stress, and respect. Again, this is my wife. So if I want to hurt my wife, I force her into tense situations. I put her in situations where she's forced to address conflict. My wife is quiet, as are many greens, and a way to hurt a green is just not include them in decisions because they're so agreeable. And they tend to be quieter. Expect them to be responsible for lots of different things. That will drive a green crazy, right? They just like one task at a time. Those with a blue temperament, their greatest needs are safety, sensitivity, support, and space and silence, all right? They're introverts. They need time away from other people. You want to hurt a blue? Do something to make them feel or look foolish. Be super tough on them for mistakes that they make. Find ways to take away their independence. Now, obviously, knowing our need, our temperament is important, but I'm telling you, knowing the needs, knowing the temperament of the people in our life that are closest to us, that's essential, because we will continually fall into the trap of unwholesome talk, unhelpful and unhealthful, if we're unaware of how our words are being perceived by the different temperaments. See, we can avoid curse words. We can avoid angry words, belittling words, hate-filled words, and yet still hurt another person, because any time we speak words that work against someone's basic temperament needs, we are speaking unwholesome words. Anytime we speak words that work against someone's basic temperament needs, the yellow that needs the attention, needs the affection, the reds that need the power and control, the greens that need some peace and harmony, right? The blues that need a sense of order. Anytime we go against those needs, we're speaking unwholesome words, words that disintegrate, words that chip away at the foundation, words that make them feel less whole. So we could triple the amount of positive words that we speak, but not really move the scale and balance things out if we're not speaking according to their need. But once we speak according to that need, once we speak according to the wiring and to the temperament, we can make a dramatic difference. This is why Peter, who is one of the disciples of Jesus, in a letter that he writes, and he's writing a letter to different people and talking about different situations, but he gets to a point where he's talking very candidly to men who are married. And he says to them in his letter, he says, treat your wife with understanding as you live together. Now, to treat someone with understanding means you made it a priority to learn what makes them tick. You made it a priority to learn how they think and how they process things and what they need. That takes intentionality. Now, we can get better at this, and we should, right? We can grow in this, and we should. But we will always struggle speaking unwholesome words if we are not paying attention to what's going on inside of us. So yes, learn our temperament, learn their temperament, but if we're not paying attention to what's going on in the depths of our soul, in the depths of who we are, I'm telling you, it's always going to be a challenge. 2,000 years ago, the religious leaders, they confront Jesus because some of his disciples aren't following the cultural rules for cleanliness and hand washing. They said, Jesus, your disciples aren't washing their hands like they're supposed to. And while they're complaining, Jesus turns and he says something odd to his disciples. He says, hey, anything you eat passes through the stomach and then goes into the sewer. It's a little potty humor there. I love it, right? He says, but the words you speak come from the heart. That's what defiles you. For from the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, all sexual immorality, theft, lying, and slander. He says, these are what defile you. Eating with unwashed hands will never defile you. Please do not send these verses to the CDC, all right? We still believe hand washing is important, but what Jesus is saying is that when we have anger and bitterness inside of us, we tend to weaponize our words because of our hurt. When we have envy inside of us, we tend to weaponize our words because of discontent. When we have insecurity inside of us, we tend to weaponize our words because we feel unsafe. When we have guilt or shame inside of us, we tend to weaponize our words because there's something in us that we're hiding. This is why King Solomon of Israel writes, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. What are you storing in your heart? What are you feeding your heart? What is controlling your heart? I love what King David of Israel writes. He says, I have hidden your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. He says, I've hidden truth in my heart. I've hidden grace in my heart. I've hidden compassion in my heart. I've hidden love in my heart. Whatever is in our hearts eventually makes its way out. So let's look at these temperaments one more time. All right? Yellows, everybody loves you. But if you are unhealthy, you will, whether it's intentional or unintentional, you will use your words to bring others down and even to shame them. Reds, you're naturally going to speak with bold and bossy and controlling words. But I'm telling you, if you're unhealthy, you're going to use your words without any effort to belittle others. Blues, melancholics, right? You're good at perfection and order. You're good at details. But when you're unhealthy, whether it's intentional or not, you use your words to expose the incompetence of others. And you're disgust with others for not thinking through the details like you do. Greens, you're easygoing. Very easy to get along with, but when you're unhealthy, you tend to use your words to be overly sarcastic and passive-aggressive to manipulate others. And so the Apostle Paul, he writes, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what's helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. We are at our best when we are disciplined with what we say and how we say it and when we say it. To different people based on different temperament. Now, admittedly, this isn't easy. Right? I know this is new information. You've never studied temperament before. You never studied even personality, which is different, but it can be overwhelming. And if you just want a little bit of help, you say, I want to get started. I want to encourage you to go to an app, right? An app that says, I said this, you heard that. This is a workbook our staff went through a couple years ago, and it really helped us and learn how to communicate with each other. And you can just go to greatlakechurch.com/talks, and we'll have a link to the app. But I said this, you heard that. And there's videos you can watch, and there's information to help you understand a little bit more of your temperament and the people in your life. Where do you start? There's so many people in our life. We'll start with those closest to you. Start by learning their temperaments. Like, an earthquake. When an earthquake happens, the greatest impact is going to be at the epicenter, and then it goes out from there. And the people who are most impacted by our words are the people closest to us, our family, our close friends. And I'm guessing that for a lot of us, this is going to be a first step of courage that we take in 2022. It's choosing to acknowledge, hey, I'm not really good with my words. I'm not really thoughtful in how I approach the different people in my life. And so it's going to take courage to say, hey, I'm going to step forward into my insecurities. It's going to take courage to step forward into our lack of knowledge on this. Say, hey, man, I'm going to learn the different temperaments of people. And man, I am going to be intentional to speak to people in a way that benefits them. And I'm telling you, when we do this, not only do we help them be at their best, we're at our best. This is why the Apostle Paul, he challenged his readers. Let your conversation be gracious and attractive so that you will have the right response for everyone. Now, if you are not a follower of Jesus, I invite you today to surrender your life to Jesus, to embrace the Jesus way. And the simplest way I can put it is to become a follower of Jesus is I'm going to step off the throne of my life. I'm going to choose to no longer be the king or queen. I'm going to step down, and I'm going to invite Jesus to be the king. I'm going to invite Jesus to have control. I'm going to choose his way over my way. My way is say whatever I want to whoever I want, but the Jesus way is different than that. And at any point this year that you say, hey, I choose to become a follower of Jesus, we just invite you to let us know. There's a yellow connection card in the seat pocket in front of you. For those of you who are in our in-person services, right? But let us know so we can be praying for you. And then you can actually take that card. You can drop it off in a silver station around any of our locations. But what I'd really encourage you to do is swing by our Next Steps table and ask for a box. Just say, hey, here's my card. I made a decision to follow Jesus, and they'll give you this box. And we want to celebrate with you, but we want to pray for you. We're not going to do it right there at the table, right? But just through the week, as we have your name and your information, we're just going to be praying for you and believing that God's going to help you as you move forward in your spiritual journey. So, if you've never made that decision, I invite you to do it today. Just simply in your heart say, today's my day. I decide to become a follower of Jesus. Let me pray for all of you. Heavenly Father, we thank you for giving us the ability to communicate and interact with each other. I pray that you would give us the wisdom to be able to identify our temperament and the temperament of those in our life. Give us the wisdom to be able to know what our personality is and the personalities of those around us. Give us the wisdom and insight and ability to know how to best interact with each other based on different temperaments and personality. And then, Heavenly Father, as you give us the wisdom to know what to do, we also pray give us the courage to do it. In Jesus' name, amen.